Okay. We are ready to go. So I am going to call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for Thursday, July 25th, 2024. It is now 7:02 p.m. and we are in the training room of the Public Safety Complex. Just a quick check. I want to make sure that the people who are on the Zoom can hear us and can see my screen. Heather, are you able to hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Hopefully you can't hear me, but we can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Can
Okay.
you see their screen?
And can you see my screen?
Roger that.
Excellent. Okay. So we do have two consent items. It's just approving meeting minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and read those off real quickly. Number one is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on July 15th, 2024. And number two is to approve the meeting minutes from the executive session held on July 15th, 2024. Are there any objections to any of the consent items? Hearing none, I declare that they are approved. So we're going to move on to new business, discussing the special town meeting and election. This is essentially a continuation of the discussion that started with finance on Tuesday. Starting to have all my days run together, so bear with me. So we have a request from finance to cobble together what we can in order to try to make this work. You saw what Mark had put up as option, quote unquote, number 3, which was a $200,000 option to try to put together some money in order to mobilize funding and to do it in a way that we wouldn't have to wait for a vote on September 3rd in order to get this going, because unfortunately we're bleeding, right? We need to stop that bleeding. So I'm going to just put up what Mark had previously shared. He was kind enough to send it along. Bear with me.
Can you maximize that, Julia?
Yeah, we have to ask Scott to max. I can probably make it bigger though, hold on.
Yep.
Oh,
Perfect.
there it is. Very good. Okay. So this was the $200,000 option, just to remind us of where we are. Let me just pull it up on my screen because I'm not looking at it. There we go. Okay. We have PD, which was 2 officers, and gas. DPW, 22,000, which accounted for some equipment maintenance and asphalt. Fire EMS, which was 11,500 for the admin and some on-call firefighters. There was an amount for the clerk, an amount for the treasurer, and an amount for the Economic Development Committee. What we didn't get to really hear on Tuesday that I'd like to start with tonight is what these amounts mean to these particular departments. And so what I'd like to do is start, police is first here on the list, and hear from Mark, if possible, as to what this amount is, and does this achieve what you are hoping or what you need for right now? Come on up.
Good evening. Here we are again.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Nope. We'll go through it again.
Like Groundhog Day.
This amount, it's helpful. I'm gracious to get this, but it replaces 2 police officers. That's 2 entry-level police officers. That's the cost if I kept the 2. But I'm not going to keep the 2 because they one already accepted a job and others are looking to leave. But this would be an entry-level police officer with no education at those figures. The gas is gas. That's enough to get us to where we were prior to the cuts for patrolling. The problem is that the number does not get me overtime, patrol, training, or anything else. And everything in my budget works in conjunction. So I can't have gas without overtime, and I can't have training without overtime, and without it, I don't function. The second issue is that with my 2 officers, or 1 officer down, that's leaving, plus if I anticipate another loss, all of my coverage is going to be overtime. I'm losing staff. I highly doubt I'm going to attract anyone in the situation we're in. We're going to try, but the likelihood of attracting someone is going to be slim. If I do attract someone, it's going to take 10 to 12 weeks to train them. So it's not a short-term fix, even if I can attract somebody. So all of my shifts, because I will be down, the coverage will be overtime. So that means I can cover half the shifts, and that's to have 1 officer. It's going to be near impossible to have the staffing level calling out overtime. It's just not physically possible. We are in a state right now that is, we're ineffective. We're not providing any police service other than response only. And I've said it 20 times that you deserve better as taxpayers. The officers deserve better. And I know there's only so much money to go around. But unfortunately, my number is unfortunately 216,000. Now that's already cutting well over 107, 110,000 from last year's budget. That's still leaving 2 positions vacant. So even with that number that I requested, that's just going to get us to the funding that will get me up and running. To say I'm going to be at the staffing level I'm at today, I'm not, because I'm going to be offices down. So,
I just changed the screen share so that you
Yep.
can now see the amount that was originally requested. And for the patrols and related expenses, it was 69.9 essentially that was originally requested as part of this, sort of this 3rd round of budget cuts. And I think what was included when what was talked about on Tuesday was 14.9 for gas. Does that 14.9 for gas doesn't do you any good if you don't have people to drive the cruiser? That's what I'm hearing.
well, the problem is it puts the officers that I'll have left back in the cruisers, and they can be out on patrol. But they can't do anything. Let's face it. I mean, again, we're proactive. We're stopping cars. We're looking for the drunk drivers to take off the road. The plate readers get the warrants, and we get notified, the suspended license, the accidents. All this accrues overtime, because with every ticket, the possibility of court time. There's a contractual minimum. They're entitled to it. So without the rest of the pieces, you can't pick and choose, unfortunately, with my department. I can't pick and choose which one's more important, because they all work in conjunction. We're state mandated for training. I have numerous instructors. I have to send them to instructor school. I don't have the money to send them. If I take them off shift, I don't have the money to backfill the shift. So how do I stay compliant with post with no funding for the training? And for the officers to keep their certifications.
Right.
And I'm going to always go back to safety. And not only do we have a responsibility for the citizens to be safe, but as their chief, I have a responsibility to them. And to ask my officers, hey, I want you to go out on the road alone, with no backup, it's a disjustice to them. And, we've said it, I've said it 20 times. Every speech, I say the same thing. Morale's in the toilet. Guys are looking to jump ship. We have to stop the bleeding somehow. And that's why I'm going to, you and the finance and the residents, it's up to your decisions. I know what our override vote said. I respect that 100%. and I'll give the service to what the funding is. So that's the best I can offer. I will just tell you that unfortunately, with the amount that we're hoping for, while it will help, it will not allow me to guarantee 24/7 coverage throughout the year. It just won't. I wish I had better news. I wish there was somewhere I can take from, but my budget does not have, added fluff in it. I've been doing it since 2007. I know what my department needs to run. That's about all I can say on that one.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions for Mark?
No, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
One question,
Yep.
Chief. The training, is that mandatory, that in-service training every year? by
Of
the
course,
state?
yeah. Yep.
If they don't go or attend because you don't have staff, is that a problem for the police department?
Yeah, you won't be certified. Now that post
You lose
took
your
over.
certification,
Yeah.
right?
The department and the officers.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
Therefore-
some we can do in-house.
Right.
But even the in-house creates overtime.
That's right.
Taser training, firearm training, all that, I can't shoot at night. Residents in Leicester would frown upon it, to hear gunshots at midnight. Taser training, we try to do our training on 2 different shifts, but the night shift, they gotta come in.
One more point. People might not know this. There was a gang from Connecticut that came up here at night and went through all of Paxton breaking into cars.
Mm-hmm.
What if that one officer came upon that gang by himself? It could be a tragedy.
I've said it a lot, many times, we're not immune. We're not immune to crime. These guys don't know what they're walking into. That's anywhere. Paxton is no different. And that's why I say, I have a responsibility to stick up for these guys and try to make them as safe as possible. And I'm almost to the point of actually begging, please give us the money, find the money to let these guys be police officers and be safe.
Thank you. Joe, did you have a
Yes, sir.
question?
Do I need a microphone?
Yes, please grab a mic.
Joe Ford, 14 Burton Moss Circle. I have a bunch of questions for you.
Excellent.
Some of the stuff you've already touched upon. It's about the $64,000 for each one of those positions. If you can't retain those officers or attract new ones to pay them that sum, will that be used for an overtime basis?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that number right there is based on regular pay, their hourly pay rate.
Those figures there are based on my 2 officers that were getting laid off's pay.
Right, but that's their regular pay rate.
That's their regular pay rate. Yeah.
Once you start using that number, that $143,000, oh, is it, what is it, 128, because
Yeah.
15 is for gas. Whatever that number is, once you start using that for overtime, that's a time and a half.
Correct.
And that goes that much less further.
Absolutely. And so you're going to figure you're going to get half of that, you might get a third of it.
Right.
Depending on who takes it, I don't have an option who gets overtime. It's a rotating list. I will tell you that history, it's my senior guys.
Right.
It's the sergeants, the lieutenant, and the detectives that take 80% of my overtime. They're the highest paid.
Right.
So if I have a sergeant that's taking it, I'm going to get like about a third of the coverage.
So the damage is already done. The people who are probably saying they're going to leave is going to leave. You're most likely going to lose more bodies.
Yes,
Okay, and the more bodies you lose, you're going to need more overtime to backfill those shifts.
correct.
Okay.
Or as they leave, whatever's left in their salary I'll use, but I'm not going to get the 40 hours a week coverage because it's just mathematics,
Are you concerned about officers getting burned out from being expected to pick up overtime shifts, and how does that affect officers' use of sick time?
Right now, we've never had problems with abuse. With what's coming down the road, if history repeats itself like always in police professions, when they can't get time off or they're burnt out, yeah, sick time rises because they need a break. Forces come in, people are going to be getting forced. They can't get forced if they're it's It's a trend. It happens. Am I worried about it? Of course. I have faith that the officers will do the right thing, but there's a strong likelihood that, yes, that could happen.
You had mentioned some of the training stuff. How is having the money available for training important? And such as, is there money in your budget for firearm qualifications for the police officers or for the ammunition required to do that?
Like I, I said to Bill, post dictates what we have to do. 3 years ago, you can miss some trainings, not that we like to and not that we ever did. But if you skipped them, you didn't have to worry about being decertified. In today's day and age, we have to submit training records. So we don't have a choice. We have to qualify 2 to 4 times a year. We shoot quite a bit. You got to buy the ammo. With the training money that's not in there, I can't afford to trade, the bolo wrap cartridges, the ammo for the patrol rifles, for your duty weapons, for your off-duty weapons. There's just no money in there. And I don't have any money for overtime.
And that the same applies for the TASER qualifications and certifications?
And one step further, we have in-house instructors. Those courses cost money, to keep them certified. There just isn't any money to keep their instructor certifications up. And we have redundancy here. I plan for losses, I plan for people retiring, I plan for people leaving, so we have some of our, positions. We have 2 firearms guys, we have 2 TASER instructors, stuff like that.
Mark, for the people who aren't familiar with it, what is POST?
POST is the governing commission now that certifies police officers and police departments. So we send their training records in, and they say, yes, you meet the criteria, or no, you don't. We have to make sure officers are in good standings, and we have to make sure that they do exactly the amount of training or more that POST requires. It's mainly a civilian board that sits on it, and it's something that came up that it made it mandatory now. It's supposed to make it so that departments are responsible, and they're putting it, there's accountability now. And that's what it's based on. And so we have to adhere to it. We don't have a choice. But the problem is that how do you fund these? Again, it's an unfunded mandate. When we were able to get money during COVID for POST, because it was new.
Right.
Well, a lot of those funds dried up. They paid for the initial funding for some offices, part-time offices, but that's gone. So now it falls on the town. So that's what we're facing now. That's why I'm saying a lot of this, everything works together. There is no, if I cut from one area, then another area is affected. And that's just, again, that's the way it is.
Neil?
Thank you. Chief, I have a couple of questions here. The other night when the town administrator was here, Ms. Monroe, she presented option 1, which you're at option 3 there, but the numbers seem to be the same. And I was under the impression that evening that the officer's cost at $64,139 was something you and she had discussed and agreed upon. And now what I'm hearing is that it's not enough. Should that number have been changed? Should it have gone up?
Well, at that time, this is what the officers that were getting laid off cost us. So if we retained them, we wouldn't be talking about this. But we didn't. And they've taken jobs.
All right,
I tried to.
Understood.
Yeah.
So,
Should you have put in more? We're trying to scrape by just to try to get enough,
Understood. So what is the roster tonight? Somebody's already left, you said that. 2 didn't get hired in January because you didn't want to put them through the possibility of being laid off.
Correct.
Not names, but
Yep.
numbers. What is the roster tonight?
As of August 6th, that's when he leaves.
Okay.
I will have 13 full-time officers. 5 of those are paid for from Anna Maria. It's supposed to be 6. I had to cut 1. So we will be down to 7 officers here.
All right, just clarify, so 13, but 5 are at
Anna Maria.
Anna Maria.
that's
And
12.
so that leaves 8, and 1 is leaving to leave
Yep.
us at 7.
Correct. Now, I do have others that have applied in our interview processes. Could they get the job? There's a likelihood that one may get it. There's one position for the department that 2 or 3 put in for. Could he get that? Yeah, there's I would say a 70% chance he's candidate, so that could go down.
All
Just
right,
to
that's good,
clarify,
but-
Mark, that was an application to another agency from your agency, not an application coming into.
Yeah, correct. And that was a senior guy. That, he wasn't somebody that was being laid off. Actually, 2 of the positions that put in, those were senior guys that had they were in no danger of being laid off.
All right, so can I,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, thank you. So the 2 that you're interviewing, if I understood correctly, you're interviewing for 2 people now, or 2 of your officers are?
2 of mine are
Are
going.
going,
Yeah.
possibly exiting the town?
Exactly. One had an interview Tuesday, one has one next Tuesday.
Okay. And you're saying 70% of?
70%
that he-
chance, I think, that one of
So
those
is
guys
that
gets it.
one of the 8, or is that now making 8 becomes 7 becomes
Correct.
6?
It'll become 7.
7.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll become 7.
All right. What's the number? 64,139. What's the number?
That is if I was going to hire somebody, that would be the number. Now, that doesn't have education, is if I'm following you right, Neil. So if I had to hire a new police officer today, that is the starting police officer's pay with no education.
But you're saying that that would be an entry level, correct, Chief?
Correct. Yeah.
Is that the only way you would hire? Would you not hire someone experienced? Of course you would.
I would love to. I would love to.
But your point is that you don't think anyone would apply relative to the conditions we are in today?
If I was in their shoes, I would never leave a steady department for one that's questionable. And we are questionable. There's no doubt about it. So the likelihood of me getting a seasoned person, you may get someone that applied that's seasoned, that should raise a red flag. And that should tell you that there's probably something that happened somewhere else. And that's why they're applying. You know, that's just to be honest with you. If you're going to leave a place that you've been at 5 or 10 years and you're going to a place that just laid people off or was looking to lay people off, there's something a little deeper in that.
Okay.
I'm all set right now, yep.
Any other questions before I?
Yeah, question.
Mark, can I just clarify something? The 64,139.
Yep.
Hello?
Doesn't that also take into account 12 and a half unemployment? So isn't the 12 and a half on top of that?
The actual bottom line here at the 216, that took into account the 25,000, I think.
So there's an
that
extra
they told me.
25,000 to
Yeah.
need to get
So it's
it
really
on.
241.
241, correct.
But because we're not laying people
Yeah.
off, I was, I'll be able to recoup 25,000, which would make my number 216.
Just want to make sure that.
Yep.
Okay.
Judith?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, Chief, people should know that there's a danger in hiring new hires. There might be a young fellow or girl out there that says, oh, Paxton's hiring. I'll take that job tomorrow. I don't care what the salary is. I'll come there, I'll get a couple of years training. Then, because Paxton might have budget problems year after year, I'm gonna bail out. Then we run into that again. It's a true story. That we had that problem here before until we gave them the Quinn bill and we retained them. Now that's history. The other problem you got to remember about police work is that if you have a proactive police force like we have here, when people drive into Paxton now and it says 40 miles an hour, they're driving 40 miles an hour. What does that do for your car insurance? Less accidents, lower car insurance. Also, we have a proactive police force. And I'll tell you from my own experience, we call it the Holden method. Holden police were always proactive, and all the bad guys stay out of Holden because they know as soon as they're spotted by the police, they're going to get out of town. Having a town like this, where you have 2 people in the family working, those houses are vulnerable. These people that break into houses are professionals. So you need a proactive police force. And it's worth the money to protect yourself and have a lower insurance rate, right, Chief?
I agree 100%.
Thank you.
But I am not, I'm not the deciding factor on that, but I agree 100%. being out there, being seen, reduces crime. It's statistics prove it. Right now, we're in a tough place. Yeah. Any other questions?
Further questions? Mark?
Chief, you have a gifts and donations account
I do.
with a balance of $55,000 right now. What is that used for?
It's used for all types of things, trainings, equipment, funding for events, senior center, spaghetti dinners, stuff like that we put on for the citizens. We do all types of, sometimes when we donate details to a lot of the town functions, that comes out of the gift money. And sometimes when we just don't have money to purchase equipment or stuff for, say, our cruises, it comes out of there.
So the balance of $55,000, if you were to take some out,
Yep.
it could conceivably be replenished by other people giving other gifts and donations in the future.
Yeah. If people were generous enough, absolutely.
Yeah, so you made mention that it could be used for training and equipment and the like. Is there a possibility that some of that could be used to make you more whole in terms of where you're trying to get to?
I could use some. Again, it's like, we're in dire straits right now, believe me, I get that. And I'm willing to do what I have to do, but that is like some of our other department accounts, that's very dangerous because that is the only fallback we have. That's why the police department has never come back at the end of the year and said, we need more money. We have always had that, like a slush fund, that we can dip into in emergencies. This is an emergency. To drain that, it would be very challenging to continue on because we wouldn't have that fallback. To take some of it, absolutely. If I need to, I need to.
But that's at your
If I-
discretion.
But it's a one-time type thing, and it took us a lot of years to get there.
that, yeah.
And,
If
you know,
I may-
I'd be willing to obviously use some to get these guys trainings and stuff, but that isn't gonna solve our biggest problem, I guess. It could help out, absolutely, but it's not gonna solve it.
Lauren?
I had a quick comment.
Just identify yourself.
Oh, Lauren Masali, 14 Burtonmore, sorry.
Yep.
I had a quick comment about that gift and donations. I would be very careful tapping into that. I'm reading more and more articles online regarding new post regulations that are being passed right now, which will include a significant operating expenses for administrative purposes and the requirement of medical and psych evals for recertifications. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but I do know that they're talking about that, which is going to be extremely expensive to have all of your currently certified officers go through a fitness evaluation, a psychological evaluation, oral interviews, and then administrative recording, documentation, and stuff like that. So I just recently read about that, so I just wanted to make that comment that in this current situation, we may want to think about that. Because if they can't do that, then they can't get certified and they can't work.
Yes.
Yeah, and Lauren, do you mind telling us your background so that we know where that's coming from?
I'm the chief of police at Clark University.
Thank you. Other questions?
You want a job?
I don't think our chief is going anywhere.
Not as chief, by the way.
Any other questions? Yep.
Pete Bogren, 5 Burtonmore Circle. Has the financial impact to the police department from the town side affected our relationship with Anna Maria College at all?
Right now, we're keeping it afloat. Now, I will tell you that they're supposed to have 6 people. Right now, they have 5. Because if I have to shift people from the town, based on seniority, I have to provide them with a certain amount per the contract. And if I have to move people from the town to Anna Maria, they're my senior people. So that means their budget goes up. And I can't go to them and say, hey, you have to give me another $50,000 or $80,000 because we can't fund our police department. So we're making it work. We're utilizing the part-time public safety officers right now. But those guys are part-time, they have full-time jobs elsewhere. They're limited. So right now, it's working. But that could change. If we have too many people leave, yeah, I'm gonna take my senior guys, that's been on 25 years and say, hey, now you gotta work up to college. That's just gonna add more issues to what I'm already dealing with. So right now, we're doing okay. But it could affect, depending on how many people leave. Yeah, absolutely, it could affect that.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Mark? Sorry, Mark, we kept you up there for a while.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to switch back over now to the option 3 that we were looking at. I hope. There we go. All right. So unfortunately, my error that I didn't actually reach out to Travis and ask him to be here tonight. So Travis is not here, but not through any fault of his own. That was entirely my fault. Heather, would you be able to speak to the DPW line?
Sure. So there's 2 lines here in this revised alternate 30 version. So equipment maintenance, so it just increases it. I think the actual calculations on the earlier option were about 9,000 some change, and in this version, I know Mark, I think, just rounded up to 10,000. We have a lot of aging equipment that's not doing so great. A lot of things that are already breaking down. We have reduced that budget going into the reduced services budget, and this would bring it back up to at least what the original request number was, which, just to remind everyone, still may not be enough if we continue having pieces of the fleet dropping and having issues with them. The second piece is asphalt. So asphalt is more expensive than regular cold patch and costs about $12,000. So this was struck from the budget when we went with the reduced services version. This would allow us to resume hot patch, doing berms, and doing better quality repairs than just cold patch alone.
Thank you. Any questions on the DPW piece of things? Okay. Moving on, fire. So the original request had $33,000 in it for the on-call firefighters, as well as the part-time administrative assistant. Mike, would you be able to come up and speak to what 18,000 does? Is that going to work for you?
Good evening, and thank you again for joining us all tonight. I guess I like nothing better than being in this room. So long and short of the answer, with the option 3, with the reduced from 59,000 from option 1, I believe, right?
Yeah, I just put the option 1 up.
Yeah. It restores $18,322 to our on-call firefighters, which would allow me to hire approximately 4 back from the 12 that were laid off and the 2 that resigned. And then on top of that, it would allow me to retain my admin right now, who's part-time, at 11,500. It does do away with the $10,000 in purchase services and, essentially the other remainder of the $33,000 for the on-call staff and some medical supply line item for $4,500 to get that back in there. $29,822 will get us somewhere. Absolutely. It's not going to be great. We do rely heavily on the on-call staff just because, as far as a majority on-call fire department, we don't know who's around any given time of the day. Most guys work. I'd love to know that, they all work at home, and when the tones go off, they'll all be right there, but we don't know that. And just like the police department, we have mandatory trainings and stuff we have to meet. Massachusetts now is an OSHA state for municipal employees, so we have to do mandatory OSHA training during the year as well. And I got to maintain the equipment and stuff that they use. But, you know, if we run short, I would hope that we could entertain at the reserve level and go from there. But it's not great, but if we got to make it work, we'll make it work.
How many call firefighters can you bring back with 18,000 versus 33,000?
4.
4. You said that. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Mike, just a point of clarification, I think I read or heard that 14 were let go. I also saw in a memo 10, and I'm certain I saw something else that said 8. So which of the 3?
We were kind of hoping to bring 8 back with option 1. 12 were laid off, 12 got layoff notices. 2 of them, before they got their layoff notices, they resigned. So it's a total of 14 that were let go. I'm trying to retain the others, and there are 2 that finished the academy on June 27th that I could not onboard at this point in time. So it's really 16 that we are not capable of employing at this point in time.
So now looking at this, the $33,000 number,
Yep,
if that were the number, how many would that bring back?
that would bring back 8.
8. And 18 is only going to bring back 4.
About 4, yeah. 4, we may be able to go 5, but really it runs us anywhere between 2,500 and about 6,000 per call member, depending on their availability and how that works during the year. But they all have to hit mandatory trainings, which cost us money.
Any questions for Mike?
Can I ask a question, please, real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
Chief, what does losing these people actually mean? So in other words, tones go off, we have a structure fire, it's the afternoon, ambulance is out. Who's responding, and is it adequate?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
It's them. So if the ambulance is out, so what we did at the special town meeting, we were able to move $100,000 from ambulance receipts back into EMS. That retained our full-time staff. Right now, we're running on a modified run card. So all our on-duty staff get all the calls right now. So if the ambulance is out and another call comes in, there's no one in the station. So that goes to an all-call, and that brings the remaining, hopefully, the remaining in-town call people to come back. For the most part, it's myself and my deputy chief during the day. So it's a very reduced staffed. If we go to a call, I've had to modify our high life safety hazard buildings in town, 260 Grove Street, Anna Maria, and the center school, to what's called line boxes. So when we get a call over there for an alarm, we automatically start an engine from Rutland and a ladder from Holden, because we know we can only put one piece out the door at this point in time. Now, that one piece may have 2 firefighters, that one piece may have 3. NFPA, NIOSH, and OSHA standards are for 4 firefighters on the first out engine. So imagine having, now, Anna Maria is a different animal, but just take a 3,000 square foot home that might be filled with smoke. During the day, chances are there might be an elderly person in that house. We can't search that house with 2 people. It'd be almost impossible. And that's one of our primary tasks when we get on scene, is search and rescue. So we have to augment our responses right now, so we are putting a bit of strain on the surrounding communities to give us that manpower. If anybody watches my finance presentation every year, this year I didn't really get into that slide, but a first alarm fire it requires 17 people on scene. That's first alarm. That was Paxton Fire Department on a first alarm assignment. We could put anywhere between 14 and 15 people on scene, even during the day. I could get 3 trucks out. Right now, we're getting 1 truck out. We did a motorcycle accident the other day. It was myself and the weekend on-call officer that had to take the engine. The on-duty crew had to transport the rider, but they had to take my lieutenant. So it left me on scene with a lot of traffic. It was a heavily trafficked road on a Saturday night, with the two police officers trying to mitigate the gas spill out of the motorcycle and get the hazards taken care of. That's a lot of work. Some people don't realize how much work. One 100-foot roll of 4-inch hose, it's almost 100 pounds. It's a labor-intensive job. It's not easy. We've been relying on mutual aid. Nationally, call firefighters are down. It is a tough job because we have to send you to 240 hours of academy training, right? And that's a lot to do for an extremely part-time job because you're coming to training twice a month. We were doing 4 trainings a month to catch everybody so they could stay on 100% training. You had to make 2 a month. Now we're down to 1 2-hour training per month just to make the budget work. We have to continue to train. It's a job that can kill us. And if we're not trained, much like the police, we're asking for trouble. And to keep a call department, which this town needs, we have to pay. Unfortunately, the days of volunteer are gone, and the days of volunteer in the town of Paxton died in 1966 at a town meeting when we decided to pay the on-call firefighters. And that was a long time ago. The demographics have changed. Yeah, we can head a couple towns west of here. You might be able to get guys that'll come out and do this for $15 an hour, which is what we start firefighters at here. But they're hurting too. So it's the demographics in Paxton. We don't have industry. There were years when I first got on in 1996, Paxton Garage closed when there was a call because 2 or 3 of the guys that worked there were on the department. They were able to handle those calls. My father was on the DPW. He was on the fire department, along with 3, 4 other guys on the DPW. So during the day, they could bounce back and forth if need be. We can't do that anymore. Light department used to give us guys back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. That doesn't happen anymore. The job's taken on a life of its own because of the amount of training and the amount of knowledge that goes into it. Because it's not about firefighting. If it was the fire suppression, what am I doing? 20 actual fires a year? It's hazmat, it's car accidents, EMS, it's people getting trapped in stuff. You name it. Water issues in houses. When in doubt, they call us. And we do this hand in hand with the police department. So we're always out. The DPW. Give you the ice storms, the little ice storms we had this year. We had 2. We were nonstop on calls all day because the light department would go out for a downed tree. Their entire staff was out with the police for another downed tree and power lines. Then more came in and more. We have to secure those areas because people will drive over those power lines. People will get out of their cars in wet roads with power lines down. Somebody has to be there. And my job as contracted with the town of Paxton is the life safety of the residents of the town of Paxton. And it doesn't matter if they pay taxes or not, unfortunately. So by state law, I'm the state fire marshal's representative for that. I have to do it. And we have to send the guys out and we have to get the job done. It's not easy. And it does unfortunately cost money, but if we can work together and I can get my other public safety partners whole as well, I'm all for it. I will make whatever work. And Mark knows, Neil knows, Bill knows. I don't mind going to capital, finance. Part of the $10,000 that I needed in the purchase services was I need a set of tires on car 1 and I need a set of tires on engine 2. A set of tires for an engine, that's $6,800. But I'm sure we can make that work somewhere down the line with capital or reserve, or maybe both. I don't know. But we can do it, and I need all the help I can get. And whether it's my guys in blue or my guys in red, we're going to make it whole. So.
Any further questions for Mike? All right, thank
No.
you. Okay. Heather, let me just pull up this next, back to option 3. There we go. Okay. Heather, can you speak to the town clerk treasurer and the EDC numbers there as well?
Sure, so the reduced services budget for both the town clerk and town treasurer still included funding for their administrative assistants. The $2,000 for each of the departments would allow for coverage, slightly less by about $100 or so of what they had requested for covering the office to maintain a high level of customer service when the treasurer collector herself and the town clerk herself are out of the office for vacation time or training, to make sure it's continual public service there. So that's what that $2,000 is. So the $2,000 does not mean, that there's not funding for those assistant positions. Those assistant positions are currently funded. They're just not currently funded high enough to cover all of the times where the town clerk or treasurer may be out of the office. And then the Economic Development Committee, that was a budget that was submitted. It was $1,000 total, $500 for purchase services, $500 for supplies, and there wasn't a lot of specificity of the intent with it. I think it was more so to continue reaching out and trying to work with the businesses themselves.
Thank you. Okay, so now you've had a chance to hear the sort of the background behind the reduced figures and whether those reduced figures are going to fill the need that I think was being requested, which was to restore service. So given that, I'm not sure that the $200,000 number is going to work to restore the service that we need. I'd like to talk about some options in terms of, and not to go, here's option 4, but one of the problems that we're running into here is that any account that we want to try and move money from in order to try and make this work requires a town meeting vote. There's only one that doesn't. The one that doesn't is ARPA. If we took $200,000 out of ARPA, that seems to be the magic number that we've been throwing around, it's not going to do the trick, and there's going to need to be maybe another added on to here, but $200,000 from ARPA, and used that to restore the budgets that we can with that money right now. We can do that tonight. Well, I say we can do that tonight, but Heather probably needs to vet it with town council, just to make sure that there aren't any reporting issues, because these amounts have already been reported to the federal government because this is federal funding. So if we were to take that money out of ARPA, this would be $200,000 that was originally slated for the fire truck. We would then take $200,000 out of the ambulance receipts reserved. That requires a town meeting vote for appropriation. That money would be intended to fund the fire truck when it's available. What's nice about that is that the ambulance receipts reserved account, we have always said we want to keep it slated for capital purchases for the fire department. This still does that. Beyond that, there is still an amount that is outstanding in order to restore service. That amount would require another option because there's not enough left in the ambulance receipts reserved account to be able to deplete it to that level. I'd suggest a combination of utilizing stabilization funds at a special town meeting, and I think Mark said he was willing to throw in what he can from his gift account to try to reduce the amount that we have to pull from stabilization in order to try to make that difference. What I believe we would end up needing to pull out of stabilization would be on the order of 35,000. I believe it would be less than 50. We still have to finalize these numbers. This was a plan that blossomed today, so I don't have all the details.
So here's my concern with that.
Yeah.
We're borrowing time and buying trouble. Because we're reducing our spending accounts.
Yep.
We've gone to 2 rounds of override, in which we got a lot of kickback from after town meeting. And by my calculation, there's less, that's 0.0037% of the town that's actually participating tonight, watching this conversation. So are we borrowing trouble?
This is not a fix.
No, it's not. It's a
is a
Band-Aid
Band-Aid.
on a gusher.
100%.
So to
The only
me, that
thing-
would just be kicking the can down the road.
It is just, I completely agree. It is.
And I don't know
Yep.
that that's the right way to go.
The only thing that fixes the problem is something that's permanent, right? So either permanent cuts or permanent increases in revenue, which we've discussed.
Ad
Steve,
nauseum.
go ahead, Steve.
Aren't we also thinking of this linearly? Why can't we take an approach that we attack this from 2 ways? The Band-Aid, but meanwhile, we have a parallel track where we are working toward that long-term solution. We put together a realistic thing, a realistic, what we feel to be, again, a realistic approach plan and communication plan to educate a greater portion of the people. So that when it is in my mind, and I think anyone in this room, everyone in this room would agree, an override is inevitable. The question is it one or many? But an override is inevitable. So why should we not, instead of thinking linearly, why not think in a multi-front kind of situation where we are attacking it from a number of different ways?
I don't think that we're not actually approaching it that way. But when we left town meeting, there were several people who stood up at town meeting asking questions about how do we get the information? Well, I didn't know what I was voting for.
Yeah.
We did 21 informational sessions. We were online, we were on YouTube, we were on Zoom, we were at the DPW, we were at the safety complex, we were at this Council of Aging. Like, how do you reach those people? And we keep asking ourselves that question. So, I mean, we gave them what they asked for, and now they're mad about it.
Or they didn't understand it, or they were intimidated by it. I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is either.
Yeah,
I'm just being completely honest.
as am I, as I was on Tuesday. We need to educate, and somehow, I don't have an answer, there are 3 processes that are used to educate people.
I mean, at a last meeting, someone talked about doing a, what's it, Friends of Paxton or something, and
There is a group that's
actually
been
Yeah.
hacked. Yep.
forming. I mean,
Yeah.
because what they don't understand is, as a select board, we're pretty limited on what the information we can send out.
Agreed.
Because
Agreed.
of a lot of different statutes around communication from select boards to the public. We can't just send a mailer and say, hey, this is what it is, So I'd be more than willing to listen to anyone who has any suggestions on, short of putting a blowhorn on the top of a truck and driving around town. I don't know what to do.
So we're looking at this as a temporizing measure, right? So this is, I guess that's a fancy way of saying Band-Aid. And the idea is to get us through what we need right now and then work toward a better, more permanent solution, as you were mentioning. And so the question with that is, do you continue toward override number 3 and try to time it with the presidential election? We had talked about originally setting another override vote for September 3rd. I think on Tuesday, we sort of collectively discussed not doing that. But we haven't changed it as of yet. That's going to be on the docket for tonight or Monday. And then we talked about implementing a fix short term so that we can wait until the presidential election to have a better option. Or maybe, if we're going to implement a short term, maybe we wait until spring and start fresh. So I think override is still something that we're probably going to have to look at. I say probably only because you can't speak in complete absolutes, right? But it's 99% positive
Right.
that we're going to be looking at it again next year, so.
Right.
Yep.
With what you proposed as the gap to stop the bleeding, hopefully in the police and fire and DPW, what is the number? Is the number back to option 1 of 318? Does what you outline,
Probably more than all of
taking
that.
ARPA, taking,
So
stabilization,
Let me,
donating a portion of the, what did you say, Mark, 55?
That's the balance.
55?
let me go back to option 1.
So do we, in effect, get to 318? Is that what we get to?
Bear with me.
Can I give my suggestion while you're looking?
Yep, go ahead.
So I appreciate using the ARPA money, but the ARPA money realistically is already being spoken for. I like to do things a little bit cleaner, and I know you're thinking get it done tonight, but I would like to propose that we go to town meeting on the 19th of August as planned, and at that time we're not looking for the smaller amount, we're looking for a total of, in my mind, 302,000. And that's made up of 241,000 for the police, and that's in the option 1, plus the additional, what hasn't been taken into account for employment. 57,000 for police.
I mean, fire.
Sorry, fire, thank you. And 2,000 for the town clerk and 2,000 for the treasurer collector. That restores personnel only and the incidentals that go with them to be able to do the jobs. And I propose that we get the funding from, I was going to suggest stabilisation, because even though I'm in all the years I was town administrator, I don't think we took out to stabilisation once, except for to buy Muir Meadows. But other than that, I've always been opposed to it. But we're in a situation where we've got no money. But I'm happy to use the ambulance funds if that's agreeable. I would reduce the unemployment line item by 68,614, the full amount, because we don't need that. Because what we're hearing is none of these people that are getting laid off are going to be laid off. They're going to be laid off, but they're walking into jobs. Mm-hmm. And then there was a suggestion from Mark on Tuesday that we use the DPW site plan remainder, what we had as an article, repurpose that. I'm okay with that. I did think that we'd got that earmarked for something else to do with the building, but I don't think the building's going to be coming around the corner anytime soon. And I think this is more important. I think public safety is very important, and I'm looking at, like I say, 302 as the number, not the small amount of 200,000. Mm-hmm. And I think we can accomplish that in 3 weeks at a town meeting. And I just think it's cleaner than taking out of ARPA, having to change any reports that the town accounting has to do, which she does. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about just reports, I'm talking about reports that she has to submit in regarding this ARPA funding is very legit. And like I say, I think it's cleaner than just doing paperwork, just passing money around. As I said on Tuesday night, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but I think that's what we have to do at this stage. And I also don't think, this is only my opinion, that an override is something we should go for this year. I think that ship sailed, we've been told no twice. I think we need to come back and for the FY26 budget, go for the deficit, and the deficit only on an override, and let the people see exactly what has happened over this last 6 months, and that's what I think. It might not go down with everybody else, but that's what I think.
Okay. Mark?
I'm not sure, I'd like to remind everybody that the Finance Committee met on Tuesday. It's been mentioned a couple of times, and people may not be aware, even people tuning in this evening, but we spent 2 hours essentially talking about option 1, option 2, and option 3. And we spent an hour this evening, so my 2 or 3 minutes right now is not going to be able to cobble together 3 hours of good conversation. But I think I want to pick up on what Carol just mentioned now. The whole genesis behind option 3 was to avoid an override. And I don't know that got lost or really wasn't highlighted sufficiently tonight. That was the motivation. And there was a number of 318, there was a number of 248 in options 1 and 2, but our feeling is 2 overrides have already failed, one of which was lower than the first one, and it failed by a wider margin. There was a risk and certainly no guarantee that 318 or 248 or any other number in a third override was going to pass. And why take that risk in September or November? So this was a quick Band-Aid fix, as quickly as we could act as possible, and the number of 200,000 was arrived at. So if we stole from Peter to pay Paul, it wasn't a massive amount from each of those particular areas. We were trying to get as little as possible that would have to be taken from each of those funds. And you've mentioned stabilization, you've mentioned repurposing and characterizing some numbers. If you scrolled down option 3 up there, some of that is mentioned, and I don't want to call up another slide, but I sent you an email this evening which includes all of those: stabilization, ARPA, ambulance receipts funds, repurposing. Those are the things I think on Monday, July 29th, when the Finance Committee and the Select Board meet jointly, we should agree on coming up with this, but I don't want it to be lost. I would like the police to have more than what is the 143. But the higher we went to get that number, the higher the 200,000 was going to become, and that was going to put stress on some of the other sources that we were trying to go to temporarily. The other thing is, if we went to an override, which the whole genesis behind option 3 was to avoid, but if we did, and risk losing it, but if we did, we'd have small override this fall, and another override, which everybody has essentially said is coming down the road later on. So let's forego this small one now, do what we can to cobble together some money, to put the quick fix, to get the night service and the ambulance service and all that in play, and then get the right number next year for FY26. Nobody knows what that number is. It's a number that the Finance and Select Board and the town administrator need to agree on. And that's when we got to have the come to Jesus meeting with the public, that this is the way that we have to go. But to do a little now and a little more later, and then a bigger one later down the road. So in some of the numbers in option 3, were numbers that were taken directly out of option 1 and option 2. So we didn't get creative, and we might have passed judgment and said, okay, well, maybe we can put up with not having weekend burial service this year. And maybe we can do with something else here and something there. But it was well-intended, but the biggest intention was to avoid an override. And I think that should be the message this evening, and that's what we should walk out of this room. What we've put together as a Band-Aid is not perfect, but at least it's not an override. And good service is going to be reinstated or restored, so.
And that's what I'm saying, no override this year.
It sounds like he's
Want to
agreeing.
amplify on what you started to say, Carol, and I appreciate you saying it. But you can't put all of our slides up, but I think the one I sent to you this evening, which I would have loved to have sent it to you at noontime, but if I sent it to you 15 minutes after I completed it. Wanted you to have it this evening, didn't have time to digest it, but it says all of what we're saying. And the Finance Committee will have benefit of that for the meeting Monday night. You'll have the benefit of the meeting that Monday night. So let's take a little from the ambulance fund, a little bit from stabilization, a little bit from ARPA, a little bit from repurposing some prior town votes, and I think we got a solution.
Yeah.
And to Kirk's point, not perfect, not long-term, but it's an immediate solution for a temporary problem, or a temporary solution for a long-term problem.
Understood. My only point is, if you deplete your emergency car repair fund, you shake all the change out of the door in your car, and you deplete most of your savings because you don't want to go back for a third override, all you're doing is perpetuating the problem, and it's going to grow to a bigger override next year.
So
If
the
that
risk,
fails-
the risk is we don't shake
that
the
fails,
change
what
out,
happens?
and we go for an override, and then it fails. And now where are we? Now we've lost 2 months. So this is a imperfect, better solution than an override. I think that's pretty much the sentiment of the Finance Committee.
And again,
Not perfect, but
just-
it's quick, and it's better than what we have right now.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Hmm?
I'm just playing devil's advocate to make the best decision we can. That's all.
So we all agree, or do we agree that an override is on the a question tonight, that we're not going to plan one?
I think if we are putting into place a temporizing measure right now, it might be in our best interest to hold off until spring and start anew and have a well-developed plan going into it. I say this knowing full well that we have a presidential election coming up that is bound to be a record breaker in terms of how many people come out to the polls. So that's the caveat, right? But I'm certain that the people in this town don't want to hear override now and then hear it again in the spring.
That was my point. I agree with that entirely.
Lori?
I'm just going to mention something, maybe I misheard, but I just want to make sure that there's not, thank you, sorry. I just want to make sure that there's not misinformation going out there. I believe I've heard people say that the second vote, people were even less in favor of the override. That's not the case. I just double-checked the numbers. And I'm not saying whether to do an override, I'm just
Yeah,
making
giving
sure that we're
information.
passing accurate information. On the first override, 36% of the people said yes versus 63 no. And on the second override, it was 45% yes, and 54% no. So it seems more people were educated, and not that they weren't educated the first time. I'm sure some people vote no because they can afford it. But you know what I mean? It seems like we got the word out of the importance of this. And just to speak briefly to the more voter turnout for a presidential election, that's only helpful if they're educated voters.
Yep, point well taken. I'm sorry, I know you had a question. Just identify yourself once you get a microphone.
Lauren Schwnard, I'm at 17 Burton Mars Circle. I have a question. As we fall out of compliance, if this isn't dealt with, Is that going to open us up to lawsuits as we don't respond to these items? The town?
Good.
So there's always that possibility, right? Anybody can file a lawsuit at any point in time. There's nothing that prevents that.
Right.
The more apt you are to have a poor response, I think that, yeah, you do open yourself up to that. There's a lot of other moving pieces to that. There is some level of immunity that's available to municipalities and whatnot.
Right.
However,
Do we lose that immunity if we're not in compliance?
possibly. Yep. Yep. That's a possibility. So even with municipal immunity, it doesn't stop people from filing the suit, and then you still have to defend it.
Right,
So-
there's usually insurance that covers some of that. I don't know
Yep,
if we have
some
it
of
as a
it.
town, but if
We
we're out
do
of
have a
compliance, I'm
self-insured
assuming
retention.
our insurance will not
Yep.
cover it?
Right.
Okay. Just want to
Right.
make sure I understood.
There's,
Thank you.
it's on the table, absolutely. Yep, thanks for bringing it up. Go ahead, Peter.
So with all the options that you're floating around, is it safe to say that what 2/3 of you had said last week, that we were going to go for a level service number, has now been abandoned? And it sounds like our select board, if in fact what you said last week you're sticking with, and our finance committee are not on the same page. Are those two statements accurate?
So I think what my goal was, right, when having Mark come up and speak to whether or not that amount was going to provide the service that he's hoping to get right now, right, is to get a number on the table that's more than the 200,000 so that we can restore the level service.
Okay, so we're still striving for level service, which would mean the same service that we were receiving in FY '20.
There's
Go
there's
ahead.
also a piece of this that's not, we know is not going to happen, right? Mark spoke to that already, that he's down 4 officers. He's not going to be able to replace 4 officers. I think we're hopeful that maybe we can replace 2 of those officers, but that's going to depend on who comes in and applies and if they're qualified and able to work.
But we're still talking two different things. There's funding
Yep.
for level service, and then there's the ability to provide such level service. Last week, I asked specifically, and it was said by 2 of the 3 of you, we are committed to go for level service funding. Carol and Julia both said that. I just want
I
to
agree
make
with
sure
that.
that is in fact what we are still striving for.
That would be my hope.
So, Peter, my hope is to try and get what the chief has requested
Yeah.
to move forward this year. What happens next year is different, but I don't think, Mark said he couldn't get the 4 people, so I was going for the 2. And that's where I stand after talking with Mark today. So I know I said at the last meeting that I was trying to get everything restored. I'm just trying to do the best I can with the small amount of money that we've got.
Right.
But again, we're still talking two different things. I don't know what the chief can and cannot do. That's up to him. I'm just wondering, is the town going to provide the funding for not just police, but fire and DPW as well? Is the town going to be able to provide the funding to offer level service, assuming personnel can be found? Because that's what I was asking last week. Are we striving for level service? Because right now we're not getting it. I mean, right now you drive through town and everywhere we used to see police officers, we don't anymore. And it's just, I'm concerned about that. That's all, just a concerned citizen.
Yep. Yep. Your concern is valid. I don't think it's likely that we're going to get a level service. I would love to see it. I don't think it's realistic.
And I was the one that said I wanted to restore all public safety. I was the one that said that. But like I said, after speaking with Mark today, I think what I want to do, 241,000 to the police. And even with that, you're still talking probably $1 million less than what he wants. But it's just not feasible, unfortunately. Not with... And I don't think he can get, $1 million or 100,000, not $1 million, 100,000, that he'd still be short from his previous budget. And there's just, without an override, there's nowhere to get that money from.
I think what we want to do and what we can do are two completely different.
Well, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands, because a week ago, that's what we were striving for, come back tonight, and that's no longer what we're striving for. And Kirk, in all due respect, I'm sorry, it was Julia and Carol that
Yeah.
did make that commitment.
I made that comment, I know I did.
I've watched, I appreciate, Julia, the fact that, town meeting, you voted, Mark voted, and granted, you didn't agree, but at least you were leading us. So I direct my comments more to you guys. I just want to see every effort put in to restore level service. That's what, as townspeople, that's what I think most of us are looking for. I understand it's going to be difficult. I don't know how you're going to do it. That's why you guys were elected. I don't want to know what you can't do. I want to know what you can do, basically.
So, Mark, can I ask a question? How long have you been down the two officers? Yeah, please, because my memory doesn't serve me very well.
We've been down those two for probably, I would say, at least a year. We knew that these tough times were coming. We've been talking about it for almost a year, prior to everything that happened with votes and everything. Once the discussion started about an override and possible layoffs, we stopped interviewing. How could I take somebody and take them away from a department that's stable and bring them here in good faith when they have families, knowing that there's a possibility that not only 2 would be gone, but 4 would be gone? So we stopped interviewing. We didn't publicize that to the officers because that would have started an exodus even earlier. But the reality is we've been down because of what we knew was going to happen. I would have loved to have continued to hold, interviews and hope to hire someone. Back then, we could have hired people. People were applying here. But we stopped. We still have to do the right thing for the employees that would be coming here. And knowing where we were heading, there was no way I can do that. So that's how long we've been down. We've been making it work. We've been filling shifts with overtime. We had the money for those 2 positions, so we're able to fill shifts to keep staffing levels appropriate and to keep officer safety and visibility and everything else. We had the money then. We're still down 107,000, which it's tough times, tough decisions. We figured we're not going to get those right now. We'd cross that bridge later on when this gets better. But there's not much else we can do. Again, I sound like a broken record because I am. It's I said this was going to go on. I said that, once the override failed, the layoffs, the damage is done, and it's done. And, I predicted that officers are going to leave. They're not going to stick around, and they're leaving. And then it's just more.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop with the 2 that applied. If there's limited future here, what can I ask? How much more can I ask for these guys? So that's the predicament I'm in.
But the 2 additional replacements would help for now.
If I was fully funded?
Anything would help.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to be full-staffed, but I get that we're in tough times. So if I can't be fully staffed to the budget I submitted, then I at least need the budget with the officers prior to the layoff.
And that's what I was planning to do.
Yes. Yep. Like I said, it's a great gesture, and I understand what everybody's trying to do, and I commend everybody for it. And I wish I had a better answer, and I wish I can work magic with the numbers, but the numbers are the numbers. And that is the best, I cannot promise that you will have coverage. It's impossible to say that. And I can't promise that people are going to be out on the road all the time. I can't promise that. That is something that is out of my hands. I can only provide the service until the funding runs out. And when it runs out, I don't have too much of a choice. Any other?
Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah,
Yep.
one question. So I guess the one thing I haven't heard tonight is what number, minus those 2 officers that you haven't had for a year, what number would you need to level service what you've been providing the town for the last year?
It was 216,000 because we had 25,000 in unemployment. So I needed 241,000. If you take the 25,000 off from the unemployment, I need 216,000.
So these options don't cover that?
No, the one I suggested does, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Thanks. All right, Neil?
Thank you. I was here the other evening, and I guess I left here with a feeling that the public that was here at that meeting felt that we wanted, including Julia and Carol, because you were both sitting here, not in session, but sitting here for information, that we were going to try to do anything we could to avoid an override or having a ballot question. And I made an impassioned plea that evening to do something to secure the employment of the employees we had, because originally the discussion was, let's do something on September 3rd, but September 1st, people would be laid off. And sitting here tonight, I'm just a little bit confused. I think we have a plan in place, but like Peter is saying, what are the numbers that you're looking for? That's my first comment. So if you'd like to answer that or discuss it with me or whatever, I have a couple other follow-up questions.
So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to put exact numbers in front of you tonight. That's going to require between Carol and the town administrator, between me and the town administrator, to sort of hash out what are the actual possibilities and then piece it together. And I hope that we would have those exact numbers available for Monday.
Okay. All right, so we'll just hold that off until, but there will be a number, and a number that you feel will not require an override in the fall, September, November, whenever. That's,
We've got to make a decision on the override tonight,
Yeah.
basically.
but there will be one made Monday.
We need to really make it tonight.
We can make it tonight.
Okay, all right, first. Just another aside, having sat through the 2 hours of discussions, and let me back up. Carol, could you explain, you made a statement tonight, and I'm not sure I understand it. If you tap the ARPA funds for $200,000, you said it requires some extra
Reporting.
work.
Reporting.
All right, but please just enlighten me a little bit.
So, this is federal money,
Right.
and the town accountant asked to do a report every quarter or whatever. And she's already put in place what we've spent the money on, or what we've earmarked the money on.
Okay.
And as she does a report next time, she does again states the same amount of things, what's been spent, what's left in it, until she does the final report. So, like I say, I like to have things clean. I don't like to take from something that isn't ours. So the ARPA money has now been earmarked for something. We've got a contract for a fire truck. We've got small amounts left in the help for households. I don't think there's anything else out there. So I would not want to go that direction. So I was saying a cleaner approach is what we've got already. And I was saying stabilisation, which I don't like to do. But Julia mentioned tonight the ambulance fund. I wasn't thinking about that because I know that the chief has said he needs that next year for his EMS. So I was thinking the stabilisation and then no override, because I don't think it's feasible to ask for an override in November for a very small amount, even though it's going to cost the taxpayers a small amount in my mind, and then come back 6 months later for an override that we need for FY26.
Okay.
And the reality is going to be that we're going to be here again if we don't get the message through that we need money in the town, and we're not overspending. We're here for the safety of the public. And I don't think Mark and Mike could have said it any better tonight, what they said. In fact, Mike enlightened me to be honest, in everything that they do, or small amounts of men now. And I think it's got to be done. And my number, I'll say my number now, and it might change on Monday, but I'm thinking about 302,000.
Okay.
And that is to restore exactly what the chief wants, well, both chief wants, and then our two other personnel. I'm concerned with staffing. Pardon?
Didn't that include the DPW as well?
No DPW.
I thought you had that.
That's taken from the DPW. From the
Okay, all right, so we got a little sidetracked there. I just asked in terms of a clarification of how things would work. So, if we're looking possibly, I'm thinking outside the box, but I heard a comment the other evening that some of the citizenry, residents in town, are not aware that we purchased a fire truck. So, I am not speaking in any way, shape, or form against. And it's my understanding that the ARPA funds need to be encumbered or appropriated by December 31st of '24, and they need to be paid out by December 31st of '26. Now, we have a fire truck on order, which is wonderful. We saved money when we purchased it. It's a great thing to have. Please, I'm all in favor of it. We're taking 2 trucks out of service, replacing with 1. However, based on the comment that I heard Tuesday evening, would there be a possibility on the November ballot of putting in a question to buy the fire truck for $750,000 as a debt for a 10-year period that would disappear when that's gone, and free up or amend the report from the accountant saying, okay, yeah, we were going to spend $750 and it was going to be this, that, and whatever payable next February or March, but now things have changed, the complexion of our town and the financial situation. Would it be possible to put that as unencumbered back into the general fund and use it for things that we've already spent that we had budget items for this year, like tree removal? I think we spent $100,000, so maybe and there's still trees to be removed. The stormwater compliance that Travis talked so eloquently about that evening, that we need to do this, but if we don't, the state is not in a position yet to fine cities and towns that don't do that. And I'm under the impression that for an extenuating circumstance, which we might kind of be in here, they could use the money for other than the 4 choices that you spoke of Tuesday night. So I know we've had discussions about this previously, and when the fire truck came up, the impact to the town residents was approximately, just help me here a little bit, but $51 per average household.
Sounds about right.
For a 10-year period, which would amount to $510 over 10 years. If it doubled, because Heather pointed out to me when I brought this up in March or April, that interest rates have changed, and they have. Everybody knows that. If in fact it's doubled or 2.5 times whatever, that $51 per household, even if it goes to $150 per household on the average assessment, you're looking at a $1,500 fee over 10 years. And I think that this $750,000 that's there could be used to help restore some of the services that Mr. Bogren is looking for and some of the other residents, and not be, and I realize it's part of the Band-Aid. I just put another piece of gauze on, but it will help us in the short term to overcome some of the deficiencies that we're facing right now and cuts that you have to make. I mean, can we buy bullets for the fire department? Can we buy EMS supplies for the fire department? Can we buy, I mean, these are things like that. Can we use the money for those things? These are extenuating times.
Mike, you got a secret you've been holding on to?
I guess I'm getting guns.
Well,
I guess so.
I want Mark to get the bullets and the whatever, and the training and things like that.
Well, you're getting gauze with it, though.
That's going to buy a lot of gauze and plates.
All right, you get the point.
I do, but I don't see how we can repurpose that amount to that extent, and especially in the budget aspect, no. And especially as there's no...
I don't, okay, when you say you don't see, just enlighten me then as to how, I'm missing something.
So, you're missing something, I'm missing something, because we're going backwards, because we've already done that 3 years ago. And so, how would we spend $750,000 on bandages, bullets. What else is in the budget that we need?
Well,
We can't,
There
we can't.
was $300,000 of stormwater that Travis wanted to put in there.
And I agree with that, but we put quite a little bit of money towards stormwater.
Well, no,
We have done
we're
that.
down to $30,000.
So I still don't see why we would go to the effort of trying to pass a debt exclusion for a fire truck when we've already got the funding for it and we need to move forward with the budget. It's not helping the budget, this.
I understand, Carol. I guess what I'm saying is if we
repurposing
go
the
for an override is forever. If you do this as a debt, it's a 10-year period that
We're
comes
talking
off.
about different purposes.
This doesn't fix
The budget.
the budget,
I
right?
understand.
Again, it's a Band-Aid. You can put it on as a debt exclusion. It falls off when it's paid, right?
Right?
But it definitely doesn't fix the problem with the budget. If you're attempting to substitute a short-term solution or a short-term override for a permanent override, which is, I think, your goal, right? It's not going to work because that 750,000 only absorbs 1 year, maybe, of budget cuts. And you need permanent increase in revenue.
But you can't use it for one-time sources of budget. You can't use ARPA money for that. So I don't understand. Like I say,
Steve,
it'd buy a lot of bandages
put
and
on
bullets.
ARPA funds and where it was going.
Mike, you want to come up and talk about? Go ahead.
I didn't mean to give you bullets, but that's okay.
I don't know if you want to give him bullets.
I know. There are some departments that are wearing bulletproof vests.
We have them. I'm not
Oh,
sure
see,
if the
look, we've got 'em.
sheriff will have bullets.
So, Neil, thank you for the discussion on the opera. Again, Mike Pinjatori, Fire Chief, Town of Paxton. So, yes, it was about 2.5 years ago now that we were looking for a fire truck. So really 3 years ago, November of 2021, it was the number one capital item through the Capital Improvement Committee. And we were fortunate to present this at ARPA, present it to Select Board, and get this truck. And this truck doesn't benefit me. It helps me do my job, helps my guys do my job. And I'll be honest with you, at this point in time, when it comes in with a reduced staff, this truck's going to help us more than anything. Because this truck is an engine and a tanker, and for those of you who don't know, approximately 40% of the town is without hydrant coverage. So those of you that live in one of those neighborhoods, this truck's for you. That's not me. I live across the street from a hydrant. But everybody else, this truck's for you, and it does touch the lives of everybody because it's an engine. It'll be at every fire. The other thing with the ARPA is we spent 0 tax dollars on this. Federal tax dollars, you're probably, spending 5 cents out of your federal taxes every pay period, maybe if that, towards this, probably less than that actually, given the defense bills. But it's 0 tax dollars to the taxpayer. The last piece of fire suppression apparatus that the town is fully funded for the Paxton Fire Department was 2001. Most of the trucks that have come in, our newest piece is actually 10 years old. That came off a federal grant for $450,000. So ARPA's helped us immensely, and it's helped you because this is really, and it's funny because I believe some of the projects were water engineering, water system, and I just said to you, 40% of you live outside the hydrant district. That money didn't affect you that live outside the hydrant district. That wasn't a study done to expand the water system. It was a study done to improve the current. This truck is going to be, like I said, at every call. Car accidents, structure fires, fire alarms. It is the first due outside the hydrant district, so that's huge in and of itself. The other side of this, you're spending 0 tax dollars. I get it. I did the math. I was ready to pitch this thing at town meeting in 2022. And yeah, it was about $50 per 1,000 on the average home in 2022. The average home in 2022 was assessed, I believe, at $369,000. And Terry could probably back me up on that a little bit. So yeah, it was about $50 on 1,000 for that house. Now we're looking around $459. But the big thing is if this doesn't pass, if we put this on a ballot and doesn't pass, okay, with the contract language as written, if we breach the contract and do not pay for this truck, and that's, I think, why the idea came up to take EMS revenue to offset the ARPA funds that you would apply, and I don't have a degree in mathematics, so there was a lot of numbers flying around tonight. But we could still cover the cost of the truck. Again, no taxpayer money used, so we wouldn't go to stabilization where you paid for those tax funds and apply
Wait,
it to the fire truck,
Mike,
that kind of stuff.
Mike, can I?
Hold on one
All
second.
right, okay.
Yeah, let him finish.
So with the, if we cancel this, right now, or as of March 29th, 2024, this year, we had a discussion on this as well at a finance meeting. If we cancel this, and this is right from KME, we will be held liable for the expenses already incurred. And right now, that is engineering and parts deliveries that they've taken. As of March, that was over $200,000.
Understood.
So, and I know you're probably saying, we'll put it to a vote, and if it doesn't go, we'll pay for it
No,
anyways.
just use the ARPA money.
And we'll use the ARPA money. But I think if we put it to a vote, but we're gonna have that fallback, I think the taxpayer is gonna want us to use the free money. Now, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong.
The other issue with putting it to a vote is it's going to compete with what we need for an override. Just saying.
Well, no, but we've just decided we're not going to have an override this fall. So if you have 85% turnout for the presidential election, that would just be another line item.
Lori?
The last
Lori's got
question.
something to say.
And she has until August 7th to post that on the ballot.
No.
No.
You can't put just whatever you want on the presidential election.
Aw, rats.
I believe Prop 2.5 overrides are the only thing that towns can put on a presidential ballot.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Sounds about right.
again,
I will withdraw the question.
all right, well, I guess you
See
don't need
how
to
easy
then.
that was? You
don't know.
convinced
Lori, why
me.
didn't you shout up first?
But that's the basis of this, Neil, and I know, and you and I have discussed this several times, and it's a tough thing. It's a fire trucks are expensive.
We
There's
need
no
it.
way
I'm
around
not opposed. I said I'm all in favor of it.
So,
I'm one of those homes outside the hydrant district, so I'm hoping it never has to come.
and this was done 2.5 years ago, right? And I think if we all had a crystal ball and we knew that we were gonna, yes, some of us
That
can
we-
argue
yeah.
that we were gonna be in this much debt, maybe, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't have done it, but I
would.
think it was a project in and of itself that has paid dividends for the town. And it actually helps us with revenue anticipation notes, I believe, as well.
Yep.
And it
Better to do
incurs
them.
interest. So,
We used it for cash flow for the last 2 years.
and hopefully we'll see it, according to this email, Q1 of 2025, and, everybody can come up, take a look at it. I'll take it over to the churches on a Sunday, and you can get appreciation for something that, we strive here at the fire department not to create a burden on taxes, and, it's just a tough year. So I appreciate your time and listening.
As I said,
Thank you.
never to be brought up again by me.
That's all right.
Promise?
I promise.
I'm writing it down.
It'll be here before I have to think
Donna?
about it.
Let the record show.
Sorry, I didn't know.
All right. So at this point, I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask for a motion from the Select Board with regard to what is currently scheduled as an override vote to take place, or a special town election to take place on September 3rd. If that is not our intention, I think we should vote to take it off. And then we can talk about, I think anything further can probably be deferred until Monday in terms of setting dates and numbers, unless you have something that you think we
No, I
should talk
think,
about
no,
now.
because Mark said he wants to talk amongst, we've got a scheduled meeting on Monday with the Finance Committee. I think that's the time to talk for numbers. But, I mean, do you want to say the date for the town meeting?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, all
Yep,
right.
Yep,
Yeah.
sure.
If you guys wait till next week again and still have to call this special meeting, that's pushing it out even further. can you call that special meeting now and still have a meeting Monday? I just want to make sure that's happening and this
You
doesn't
mean the
keep getting
special
pushed out.
town meeting?
Right, didn't you
Yeah, we're
need
talking about
one?
that now. We just said we're going to do that now.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Kateri, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So I do have a question about the ARPA funds. Carol, can you go down the list on what you're thinking of taking out of the ARPA funds?
I was not thinking about taking anything out of the ARPA funds, Terry.
Okay,
Julia was just saying a number,
okay.
but I'm trying to talk her out of that. So we'll discuss that on Monday.
Well, only because there is a line item that, we're still funding for assistance to households.
I mentioned
And
that
I
one.
did. That's open through the end of the year.
Yeah.
And Donna and I work very hard
Yeah.
at that with helping our senior citizens and anyone else in town that
That was my initiative.
requires
Terry, so I know.
or has those needs.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to see, not that I don't think that this is admirable,
No.
trying to shift money around, but I'd hate to see that come out and not help our
No.
most vulnerable.
I agree entirely because, like I say, I was part of that and I'm well aware of what that was for and how it helps people in town. So I wasn't even talking about taking any money out,
Okay.
but I certainly took from that. And when we did put that, I'll give Peter kudos for that because when we did give a number out for that, Peter increased it. So, so we wouldn't take it now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, that's all I had.
That wasn't a line item that I was planning to repurpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for a special town meeting for Thursday, August 15th.
I think you want 19th, don't you?
Did you want the
I
19th?
think the 19th, yeah. I'm away.
So the 19th. It's good because I'm probably away the 15th too. Probably away the
So you're gonna
19th
leave me
as
to
well, so.
So we have
19th,
The 19th.
a motion for a special town meeting on August 19th,
which is a Monday.
which is a Monday.
I'll second that.
Do we have a time?
7 o'clock?
7 PM at Paxton Center School. And any further discussion on that piece? I'm not going to open the warrant tonight. We can open it
Yeah.
on Monday. And all those in favor for that special town meeting?
Aye.
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 All right, and then I
And
need a
there's a
motion to take off the
Ballot question.
ballot question.
Where's that?
It was scheduled for September 3rd.
Oh, and I propose that we take the special town election off of the agenda for Tuesday, September 3rd.
Yes. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
So we have one bit of new business that I'd like to try to get to before we close tonight. The rest of this issue with our elections and special town meetings and moving money around, we'll wait until Monday. We'll figure out those final details hopefully on Monday. Yes, Mark?
Just a point of clarification, I think it's been affectionately referred to as option 4.
Here we go.
Can we get that committed to writing? Or
I
have
think
a
it's
slide for Monday night so we're not verbalizing it? I think it's a little bit easier to talk from a hard copy of something.
Yeah, we'll get something put together. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So the very last thing is to review, well, I say the very last thing, but there's other stuff on here that I doubt will come into play tonight. So review and approve the affidavit of asset purchase agreement relating to the liquor license for Seven Saws Brewery. You may have seen this. I believe Paul Mulroy was going to be joining us, but I don't know that he's on. I don't think it holds us up any, so
I don't think so either.
I'm going to go ahead and, so essentially what happened is the Alcoholic Beverages Commission took a look at the application for their liquor license. You may recall that I pointed out on the application that the transfer cost one beer,
Yep.
which I found to be highly amusing at the time. Apparently, the ABCC did not find it to be quite as amusing, and so they have requested an affidavit from Seven Saws and a new vote of the Select Board in order to approve that permit. So I will ask for a motion to that effect.
I will make a motion to approve the signing of the affidavit for the purchase agreement for the cost of one beer.
Is that what you need, Donna?
Or $8. How about $8?
Just read what's on the agenda.
Make it evidence,
Yeah.
board application.
They need to take a liquor license for 7 stores.
Oh, yeah, okay. Review and approve. So I make a motion to approve the affidavit of the asset purchase agreement relating to the liquor license for 7 Salisbury.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we have no old business. Select board correspondence. I do have a press release that came in, which many people probably have seen already, but this is thank you to Pam, who is
Select.
no longer here. And it's with regard to library certification sources. This will be available, I think it's pretty widely shared at this point anyways, but it will be available in the select board office if anybody would like to read it. Heather, do you have any town administrator's report that you need to provide?
No, at this time.
Okay, and any public comment, further public comment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
Thank you.
Carol, can we just